Okay. Hello, everyone, to our debaters, viewers, and to our adjudicator. It's a pleasant afternoon to all of you. So, this afternoon, we are going to have the first ever virtual debate presented by the Leyte Colleges Debate Society in coordination with the LEX Circle. So, for today's debate topic, our debaters will have a discourse about the juvenile justice system, specifically whether or not to lower the age of criminal responsibility to 9 years of age under our penal laws. But before we formally proceed with the debate proper, let us first have our prayer to be followed by singing of the national anthem.
There's one more gift I'd ask of you, Lord. It would be peace here on earth. As gentle as your children's laughter all around, all around. There is
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang pinirang, tuyang ka ng magiting, sa manlulubing, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw. Ang tula, kawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng katawan ko'y tagumpay na nagtitingin. Bakit tuwing at araw niya kailan ang may magtitingin? Lumalang araw ng warhabit pagsingka, ko'y langit sa piling mo. Ang hinigaya na pagkay mga aking ang mamatay.
Okay, so now let us proceed with our debaters. So let me introduce our debaters for this evening. So first, for the affirmative side, we have the team Dilawan. So led by their team captain, Elisha Mustafa, a JD4 student, and her members, Felix Payak, a JD4 student, Karil Estrara, a JD3 student, Ayan Kim Alomro, a JD2 student, and Yandy Marticoy, a JD1 student. As for the negative side, we have the team DBS, JB Angelo Camagting, a JD4 student, as their team captain, followed by Emmanuel Antonio Lim, a JD4 student, Christopher Bacani, a JD3 student, and Mary Louise Oivico and Rani Candaza, both JD1 students. Now, for our adjudicator, we have our very own Attorney Ramon and Pedroza Jr. So a round of applause, everyone, for our adjudicator. Sir, be gentle to us. Okay. Now, for introducing as well my co-host for this evening, the very beautiful Miss Nadine Noel. The floor is yours, Miss Nadine.
Good evening, ma'am. Now we move on to the debate mechanics. We're using a modified Oxford Oregon format. The debate is between two sides, the affirmative and the negative, each with 4 members and a team captain. Each debater from the affirmative side argues the necessity, beneficiality, and practicability of the proposition, while the counterpart debaters on the negative side opposes these arguments. Each debater is given 5 minutes to deliver a constructive speech, 3 minutes for the interpolation, and cross-examine the opposing debater. Only categorical questions may be asked, and answerable only by either a yes or a no. So let's start with the debate. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Worthy opponents, distinguished judge, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. In the Philippines, it is a common sight to see children either begging for alms on the streets or inhaling solvents. Some of these children are involved in criminal activities either because of poverty or because they are forced by members of syndicates. These syndicates know that the authorities cannot fully punish children for crimes committed, and therefore, to them, children are expendable, especially those who are below the age of 15. In 2010, it was reported that there were 1,200 cases of juvenile delinquency. Because of the rising criminal activities involving children, many have demanded that children in conflict with the law, or CICL, be lowered from 15 to 13 years old, meaning children under 15 years old shall be exempted from criminal liability but will be subjected to intervention program by the government. In October 2013, President Aquino signed into law Republic Act 10630, amending the Juvenile Justice System and Welfare Act of 2006. The minimum age of criminal liability remained at 15. Under the law, CICL will be tried accordingly with all the rights protected, and they will be assigned to a social service officer who shall determine which appropriate program the CICL should attend in the hope of reintegrating the child to society. However, under the revised penal code, children 9 years old and below are completely exempt from criminal or social responsibility. Children above 9 but below 15 but with discernment are criminally responsible. We on the affirmative side are saying that we are not lowering the age of criminal responsibility, but we are going back to the old law. Therefore, it is not lowering, but rather reverting back to the old law. The changes being proposed now is going back to below 9, above 9, below 15, the social responsibility of the child. We believe that it is not correct to say criminal responsibility because the change or amendment is more of a reformative in nature. The intention is not to punish the child, but to reform or rehabilitate him to make him useful and more responsible citizen of the country. If we try to look at the decisions of the Supreme Court from 1901 up to the time Republic Act 2344 was passed, not a single case decided by the Supreme Court that attacked child's age of criminal responsibility of under 9, above 9, below 15. Now, if this age of criminal responsibility is detrimental at all, that according to studies, the mental faculties of a child is not yet fully developed, that they are not yet in a position to discern on whether or not what they had committed is right or wrong, there would have been findings of some sort in the decisions of the Supreme Court. While it is true that the Philippines is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, that includes one of the commitments safeguards for children in the criminal justice system, but it is not exclusive. It does not prevent the state from devising its own ways, its own means in order to protect the children of this country. It is not correct to say that the Philippines is trying to go against current global trend because we are not prevented to complement what is global. We have to realize that even the United States, the richest and most powerful country in the world, where the United Nations is seated, it has a lower. Other states has adopted a lower age in order to make a child socially responsible. Even Singapore has adopted a lower age of criminal responsibility. Other countries in Asia, and these countries are more advanced than the Philippines. If it is true that they have violated the provision of the United Nations Convention, why are they not being asked to desist from the crafting or enforcement of their laws fixing or pegging the social responsibility of a child lower than 15 years old? While it is true that the United Nations has come up with a standard age of a child to be covered by social responsibility, but this does not exclude our government to provide measures for the reformation of children according to its own study and according to its own experience. In our experience, we saw, we saw children neglected by their own parents who do not perform their obligation to the children despite criminal liability under Section 59 of PD 603. Stakeholders are not performing their duties, but the performance of the stakeholders should be complemented by laws that are crafted by Congress. Hence, we on the affirmative side hereby postulates that if we revert back to 9 years old, it will call the attention and provoke a more aggressive care of the parents who really cared their children. Therefore, if these children are supervised by their parents, parents are zealous and aggressive in trying to attend to their children, we do not think that the criminalities committed.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to our distinguished judge, viewers, good evening. It is my honor to present the negative side, which opposes the lowering of the age of criminal responsibility from above 15 years old but below 18 years old, provided there is no discernment to 9 years of age. It is not disputed in this discourse that there are crimes committed by minors. What needs to be addressed is whether the lowering of criminal responsibility is necessary, beneficial, and practical to all concerned actors, such as the state, the society, and of course, the child. Nor the realization of different ages between neighboring countries with respect to the minimum age of criminal responsibility in their laws. A number of reasons leads a country to differ from one another. The affirmative side of this proposition urge that there is a need to lower the minimum age of criminal responsibility on the ground that there are crimes committed by a minor or a minor is involved in perpetuation of a crime, either as an accessory or accomplice, and that the prosecution of this minor involved are restrained by RA 9344, otherwise known as the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act, which exempts minor age 15 years and below, minors above 15 years old but below 18, provided they act without discernment from criminal liability. The timeliness of this urgent proposition, according to the affirmative, will curb the number of crimes that involve a minor, and that the intervention of the state to these children in conflict with the law can start at their earlier years. The negative side, with due respect to the affirmative side argument, strongly opposes this proposition. It is worthy to note that RA 9344 institutionalized the promotion of the well-being of a child and their families, involvement of parents and guardian, promotion of diversion, avoiding deprivation of liberty, and protecting the privacy rights of children. In other words, there is nothing wrong with the law that set the current minimum age of criminal responsibility, nor call for its amendments on the ground that there are a number of crimes committed by a minor and that they cannot be prosecuted because of their exemption or the proposition will provoke an aggressive parenting. It is a duty. Every parent is due to their child, whatever be the minimum age of criminal responsibility. The proposition to lower the age of criminal responsibility back to the obsolete 1932 penal law provision is a leap backward to the established principles embraced by the state in connection with the protection of the welfare of, of children. Further, the best interest of the child in this jurisdiction is paramount. Wouldn't it tantamount to a departure of this principle? Assuming the proposition is granted, is it possible to attain the utopian dream of the affirmative that there will be less crime that involves a minor? Did we, a state of a state that advocate juvenile justice, abandon the policy that seek to promote child welfare on their early years by reducing the minimum age of criminal liability? Without further ado, the negative side will discuss why it is not necessary, not beneficial, and not practical to lower the age of criminal responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that introductory speech. Now, moving on to the necessity of the said proposition, we have Mr. Ian Kim Alumro of the affirmative side to tell us why it is necessary to lower the age of criminal responsibility. Mr. Alumro, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Speaker. This side of the House is in the affirmative side on lowering the age of criminal liability of the children in conflict with the laws at 9 years old with the following arguments. First, offender of the crime should be punished according with the equality to the victim. Two, Republic Act 9344 give tolerance and overpower the children. Number three, the number of juvenile delinquent cases is increasingly alarming. And lastly, Republic Act 10630 promotes recidivism. Before I lay down my arguments, please allow me to define few words that are relevant to the case. Under Article 3 of the Revised Penal Code, provides the definition of felonies which are committed not only by means of deceit or dolo, but also by means of fault or culpa. There is deceit when the act is performed with deliberate intent, and there is culpa when the wrongful acts result from imprudence, negligence, lack of foresight, or lack of skill. In this provision, Your Honor, it is clear and comprehensible what felonies are, may it be committed with intent or not, which may be applied or may apply to anyone who may violate such act or omission. Also, in the same code, Article 4 provides how criminal liability shall be incurred, where it says, by any person committing a felony, although the wrongful act done be different from that which intended, and by any person performing an act which could be an offense against person or property. Clearly, in the said provision, how criminal liability shall be incurred. This side of the House firmly believes on the necessity of lowering the age of criminal liability of the children. The number of juvenile delinquents in the Philippines increased from 10,388 in 2017 to 11,228 last year, with physical injury the most committed crime by minors. This is as per Philippine National Police Women and Children Protection Center reported last January. This gives us an alarming cases or numbers as cases involving juvenile keep rising yearly. The Republic Act 9344, or an act establishing a comprehensive juvenile justice and welfare system, children has been overpowered to even commit felonies. In the recent case of People of the Philippines versus Palema et al. With GR number 228,000, decided on July 10, 2019, the courts find the accused Lester Ladra guilty of robbery with homicide, and in consideration with the privileged mitigating circumstance of minority and voluntary plea of guilty, he was sentenced to penalty of 8 years and 1 day of prisión mayor as minimum to 14 years, 8 months, and 1 day of reclusión temporal as maximum. However, in accordance with the provision of the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act of 2006, and jurisprudence thereto. Service of sentence is suspended, and at the end, the case of Ladra was dismissed. In the said case, we have defeated to serve the justice for the family and relatives of the victims. We have deprived the family and relatives of the victims. Clearly defined in our 1987 Constitution, Your Honor, under Article 3, Section 1, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied by the equal protection of law. Life, as highlighted in the Constitution, is something more than mere animal existence. Victim of the said case is a rational being endowed with his rights. If lowering criminal liability of juvenile deprives them of their rights, Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution even provides for equal protection of law, which signifies that all persons should be treated alike, both in the privileges conferred and liabilities imposed. Republic Act 1944 is denying the clause equal protection of law, rule of law for the victims. As a matter of fact, in a study conducted by Faro, children know the difference between right and wrong before they reach the age of 5. And at the age of 9, children becomes able to know the consequences of their behavior or actions and grasp the idea that we have rules so people can get along and we don't want chaos. In an act of strengthening the juvenile justice and welfare system in the Philippines, otherwise known as Republic Act 10630, amending the Republic Act 1944, in its section 20B, provides the repetition of offenses where a child who is above 12 years of age up to 15 years of age and who commits an offense for the second time or oftener, provided that the child was previously subjected to a community-based intervention program, shall be deemed a neglected child under the Presidential Decree number 603, as amended, and shall undergo an intensive intervention program supervised by the local social welfare and development officer. The age of minority, Your Honor, has been taken advantage of
Sir,
these
time's
young
up.
offenders to even commit crimes. So this basically is the reason why this side of the house is in the affirmative side of lowering the age of criminal liability to 9 years old. That's all.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that, sir. Now we have Mr. Chris Bacani of the Negative, who is going to cross-examine. Okay, Mr. Chris, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Alumro.
Good evening, sir.
Here's my questions. Earlier, you clearly defined the means of deceit or dolo, which means deliberately intent. Does a 9-year-old child already have criminal discernment of what he is doing when he was just asked by his father, who is a pusher, to deliver the stuffed toy with drugs inside?
As provided by the study of Faro, as I said a
Just
while ago,
answerable
sir,
by yes or no.
a 9 years old can have the idea of
No,
right or wrong.
just answer yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think that children can be victim rather than perpetrator?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you think that children can be
Sir, the
victim rather
question
than
should
a
only be
perpetrator?
answerable by yes or no, sir. A question should only be
Yes.
answerable by yes or no. What's your question, sir?
Yes. Do you think that children can be victim rather than perpetrator? What's your answer?
Will you please rephrase your question, sir, to make it
Okay.
clear to be
Do you
answerable by
think
yes or
that
no?
a children can be a victim rather than a perpetrator or the one who will commit the crime?
If given by the situation, they could be a victim, they could be
Just
not.
answer yes or no, sir.
Maybe.
Okay. Does it mean that a child's brain is already developed by age 9?
Yes.
According to psychological studies, criminal discernment is at 16. Do you believe that all accused are guilty beyond reasonable doubt?
Sir, I'm sorry.
Do you believe that all accused are guilty beyond reasonable doubt?
There is always a due process provided by Article 3, Section 1, sir.
Just yes or no?
As provided by the situation, they could be yes, they could be no.
Okay, because like what you said earlier, that the minors and adults can be treated with the same punishment with an adult by lowering the age penalty. In this case that you cited, in Ladera, is Ladera a 9-year-old child under the case that you cited earlier?
Sir, probably you have the different jurisprudence. It was Ladra, not Ladrera.
Okay, Ladera, the one that you cited, is he a 9-year-old child?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you mentioned equal protection of the clause under Article 3, Section 1. Does it follow that we need to treat the child like an adult in arresting them?
There's no exception with the law, sir.
Okay. Do you know that the child's brain is still developing
We
at
are fair when
earlier
it comes to the law,
stage?
sir. I'm sorry.
Do you think that the child's brain is still developing at an early stage?
At the age of 5, they have able to get the idea of what is right and wrong.
Okay. You mentioned Faro that he said that the child may grasp the consequences of their behavior. Do you agree with that? That they are still developing?
They are developing. They are developed already, sir. But they are growing.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, now let us
Thank you.
continue with Mr. Bacani's stand on why it isn't necessary to lower the age of criminal responsibility. You have 5 minutes
Okay.
to lay down your proposition.
Good evening, everyone. Why are we not convinced that there is a necessity to lower the age of responsibility simply because it will only affect the marginalized sector and that the mental development of a child is still in progress at 9 years old? The fundamental human rights of children are enshrined under our Constitution. Article 15, Section 3 states that the state shall defend the right of children to assistance, including proper care and nutrition, and special protection from all forms of neglect, abuse, cruelty, exploitation, and other conditions prejudicial to their development. According to Amnesty International, children in conflict with the law are often from marginalized groups, including street youth, drug users, and those with interrupted education. Many are fleeing difficult home situations, often exacerbated by abuse and poverty, and resulting in an interrupted education. Torture, rape, and other forms of cruel and inhumane treatment are part of everyday life for those children while they are incarcerated. An international documentary on the issue that children as young as 8 are being held in adult prisons contrary to international laws. In 2005, it was estimated that over 4,000 children were in jails mixed with adults, 20 of them on death row. Since the Juvenile Justice Law was enacted in 2006, there have been improvements and some children are referred to welfare homes bypassing the jail. Lowering the age responsibility is outrageous considering the violations of human rights that is happening. According to the yearly data of the PNP, crimes committed by juvenile are only 1.72% of the total universal crimes. If they lower the age down to 9, syndicates may use an 8-year-old boy to be their new courier, which doesn't make sense. Instead, they should go after those syndicates. According to Loftus Silwander of UNICEF, lowering the age of responsibility is against child's rights. The proposal goes against the letter and spirit of child's rights. The study shows a lack of evidence and data that children are responsible for the increase in crime rates. It will not deter adult offenders from abusing children to commit crimes. Children are already victims of circumstances because of their environment, poverty, and exploitation by adult crime syndicates because kids are cowed into docility. Scientific study shows that brain functions reaches maturity at around 16 years old, affecting children's reasoning and impulse control. By 2019, there are only 55 Bahay Pag-asa all throughout the country, means that there is a great shortage of these facilities. The law requires the government to establish rehabilitation centers or Bahay Pag-asa for children who are victim to violence and abuse in order to provide protection for them and to protect the children against abuse. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Now for the affirmative, we have Mr. Ilungra to cross-examine Mr. Bacani's proposition. Sir, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, good evening.
Okay, so most of your arguments was actually based on studies or theories. Now let me ask you: should we focus more on studies and theories over jurisprudence or provision of the law?
No.
Okay, but most of your arguments, sir, was actually based on the theories and studies or it is. Well, anyway, so let's go on.
Yes.
Second question, sir. Do you think should crimes committed be punishable by law?
Yes.
That's right. Okay. Will you agree with me that the perpetrator of the crime be accountable for his act?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's right. So basically, whether you are children or an adult, if you have committed a crime, you should be punished in accordance to your act. Well, anyways, let's continue. Sir, have you read Republic Act 10630?
Yes.
Okay,
It's the
that's good.
amended
So
law of
does it?
9344.
Yes, sir. Does it says that only the victim of the family will be provided by assistance?
Yes, it's a
That's
good law
false, sir.
actually.
That's false, sir, because it's the victim and the offender who will be provided assistance. Well, anyway, another question, Your Honor, is under Article 3, Section 1, no, of the Constitution, are we not depriving the victim of the family or the victim himself if we let the juvenile who have committed a crime not be responsible for his act?
No, it
Do you
depends on
think
the circumstances.
there is a
Because what
fair?
we're pointing out here is the lowering of the age responsibility. So it's definitely no. Because under the law, it's 15 years old with
Well, anyway,
discernment.
sir, my second question is you're only allowed to answer yes or no. Well,
Okay.
anyway, sir, do you think there is a just and fair treatment of law?
Yes.
There is no fair treatment, sir. So that is the reason why we are debating for this topic. That's all, ma'am speaker. I mean, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great points from both teams. Now moving on with the beneficiality of the proposition, we have Mr. Yandamor Tikoy to tell us why it is beneficial to lower the age of criminal responsibility. Mr. Tikoy, you have 5 minutes.
To our esteemed adjudicators, competent debaters, good evening. I am Yunimar Tikoy, second speaker of the affirmative side, and I strongly affirm the lowering of age of criminal liability in the Philippines. To commence, let me cite some relevant news and studies involving minors as the suspect of the crime in the Philippines. The headlines. Legazpi City, police arrested two suspects who stabbed to death five members of a family in their house in Baleno Town in Masbate Province on August 28, 2021, just recently. A total of 2,256 incidents of physical injury committed by minors were reported to the desk of Philippine National Police Women and Children Protection Center for 2018. As published under ABS-CBN News, the Philippine National Police was in favor of the lowering of the criminal liability, citing a spike in criminal involvement of minors as such data collected by the Philippine National Police Directorate for Intelligence and Investigative Management Crime Incident and Reporting System. A total of 11,324 crime incidents involving minors were recorded in 2018. Theft is the second most committed crime by minors in 2018. A total of 1,324 minors committed malicious mischief in 2018. Activities, drugs related, committed by minors went up by almost 50%, with 857 cases in 2018 from 481 cases in 2017. Rape is the fifth most committed crime by minors in 2018. The number of juvenile delinquents went up from 10,388 in 2017 to 11,288 in 2018, breaking the decreasing trend and continuously increasing up the present. Why lower the age of criminal liability? First, as stated by President Duterte, Filipino youth would accept responsibility for their action. Child offenders should not be given special privileges for the crimes they committed. Since they know that they will not be sent to jail, this gives them the confidence to continue committing crimes. These minors are protected by the law and could not be criminally liable. Existing juvenile laws are being taken for granted, hence, child offenders keep on committing various crimes. In the Article 2 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, Section 1, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the laws. Would it be contrary to the phrase, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of laws, if the law exempts minor to criminal liability as the offender, regardless of how heinous the crime was? Is it really the definition of equality? This is absurd. This means that nobody, yes, nobody, including the government, can try to end your life. It also means that government should take appropriate measures to safeguard life by making laws to protect you, and in some circumstances by taking steps to protect you if your life is at risk. Murder, homicide, parricide, rape, to mention done intentionally. And in the ethical concept, it is done as a human act. Human acts are actions done intentionally, free, and deliberate of a person. A person should be responsible with the consequences of the acts done. Involves a person's responsibility and accountability of the result of his or her actions. The state recognizes the importance of the family as provided in the 1987 Constitution, Article 17, Section 1, that says the state recognizes the Filipino family as the foundation of the nation. Accordingly, it shall strengthen its solidarity and actively promote its total development. Isn't it injustice to exempt minors to criminal liability when committed a crime resulting to death or injury of a family member or alike? Second, lowering the age of criminal liability deter not just the minor from doing crimes, but also those who are taking advantage of them. Minor who committed the crime will be subject to reformative justice, an approach to justice that seeks to repair harm by providing an opportunity for those harmed and for those who take responsibility for the harm to communicate about and address their needs in the aftermath of the crime. Third, lowering the age of criminal liability will lower the criminal rate involving minor as the doer. And finally, it helps minor in conflict with the law to reform and to realize their worth. The state will help them to retract and will guide them through. Therefore, lowering the age of criminal liability is beneficial in reforming the child, the nation, and eventually the future. Thank you.
Good evening, speaker. Here's my questions. First, have you seen the age of the culprits in the massacre committed in Masbate?
Yes.
Come again? Have you seen the age of the culprits in the massacre committed in Masbate, sir?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you know that the culprits are already 15 and 17? Then it is non sequitur to propose the lowering of the liability.
Come
Second,
again, sir.
according to the data of the Philippine National Police, they said that there are a total of 11,324 juvenile accused. Do you believe that they are all guilty?
Come again.
According to the data of the Philippine National Police, they said that there are a total of 11,324 juvenile accused. Do you believe, sir, that they are all guilty?
No.
An accused is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Do you know that? It doesn't follow that a child is already guilty if he was made a courier, even without knowing what he is delivering. Third,
Come again.
you said that theft is the second most committed crime. Do you believe that the reason is poverty?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Then we should resolve poverty by formulating intervention measures.
Come again.
You said rape is the fifth most committed crime in 2018. Do you have any records of a 9-year-old being committed rape?
Yes.
Next, you cite news article with regards to the crimes committed by a minor in 2021. So, sir, do you agree with me that not all minors can do the same?
Of course.
It is answerable by yes or no, sir.
Of course,
So with
yes.
regards to the statistics you provided dated 2017, 2018, do you think that the same is true in the present year, 2021?
Come again. Come again.
With regards to the statistics you provided dated 2017-2018, do you think that the same is true in 2021?
I'm not saying that it's true, but there is a continuous
It is
change.
answerable by yes or no, sir. You cite the invocation of equal protection of laws. Are you saying that the CICL should be treated the same with an adult?
What CICLS? What CICLS?
You may answer with yes or no, sir.
How am I going to answer that, ma'am, if I don't know what CICLS?
Next
It's a,
question. Rephrasing your statement that nobody, including the government, can try to end a life, which means that the government should take appropriate measures to safeguard life by making laws to protect you and in some circumstances by taking steps to protect you if your life is at risk. So do you agree that by any means the government must as well protect our minors with utmost interest?
can you please rephrase your question?
Rephrasing your statement that nobody, including the government, can try to end a life, which means that the government should take appropriate measures to safeguard life by making laws to protect you, and in some circumstances, by taking steps to protect you if your life is at risk. So, do you agree that by any means the government must as well protect our minors with utmost interest?
Depends upon, but it's yes. Dependable.
Yes or no, sir?
Dependable. Yes.
You cite the invocation of equal protection of laws. Are you saying that the child in contact with the law should be treated the same with an adult?
Of course not.
Yes or no, sir? Further,
No.
you've mentioned the
Okay, time's
1987
up.
Philippine Constitution, Article 17, Section 1,
Time's
that
up.
says the state recognizes the Filipino family as the foundation of the nation.
Time's up.
So, do you believe that the best reform for misbehaving behaviors?
Beyond the given time.
Okay, excuse me. The time is already up. Let us proceed with the next portion of this.
Okay, now let us continue with Ms. Rani Candace's stand on why it isn't beneficial to lower the age of criminal responsibility. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes to lay down your proposition.
The youth is the hope of our future, as firmly quoted by our very own national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal. Now, uh, our honorable judge, express smart debaters, and dear competent contenders, ladies and gentlemen, is it really beneficial to lower the age of criminal responsibility to 9 years of age under our penal law? So under RA 944, also known as Juvenile Justice System Act of 2006, emphasized that the state shall protect the best interest of the child through measures that will ensure the observance of international standards of child protection, especially those to which the Philippines is a party. Detaining or institutionalizing children are the least effective and the most expensive measures for preventing reoffending. So I am making a stand before your presence that this proposition is totally unbeneficial for these reasons. First, it is impractical. Lowering the minimum age of criminal responsibility will not be beneficial, especially for the young people. This proposition of lowering the age of criminal responsibility puts the blame back on children. I believe that no one is born a thief, a murderer, a drug addict, or a criminal. More than any other factor, we believe that it is the social milieu of children that lead them to a life of violence and criminality. It seems that the proposed amendment to the law is a short term fix to a problem that requires a long term solution, an amendment that moved towards punishing instead of transforming children, which goes against the spirit of the law and the principle of restorative justice. An amendment that moves to shun away the young and misunderstood to a range of opportunities in life instead of non judgment, understanding, and giving them second chances. Second, a child as a subject to coercion. By lowering the minimum age of criminal responsibility, syndicate groups who exploit children into committing crimes for them will instead use and abuse even younger children to commit their wrongdoings. As young people, they do not have full control over their freedom and decisions. This is where adults and criminal gangs come in. While the JGC or the Juvenile Justice Welfare Act and social workers have admitted that there are syndicates using children for crimes. They said the adults should be punished, not the children who are just mere victims. In a letter to Gordon Marta Pais, a UN Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children, warned that lowering the criminal age would also put more children at risk of violence. Doing so, she said, would further compromise the fight against impunity of those responsible for exploiting children in the first place. Using children for criminal activities, that's child exploitation. Third, it lacks empathy. A 12-year-old child is not yet even a teenager. A 9-year-old child has not yet even reached the standard age of puberty. These ages are too young, and exposing them to the harshness of the criminal justice system, where even adults are rightly intimidated, is a grave wrongdoing. The previous age of 15 was based on studies done in the Philippines in order to assess the age when criminal discernment is possible. However,
Hello, Miss Speaker. I believe you were muted. Okay.
to brand children as criminals removes the responsibility and accountability from adults who have failed them. Children in conflict with the law are victims of circumstance, mostly because of poverty and because they are not able to access a caring, nurturing, and protective environment. Even after being detained, exposing a child to the criminal justice system, or simply labeling a child a criminal will more likely establish the criminal identity of the young person. Experiences from other countries coupled with research on criminology have shown that introducing children to the juvenile justice system earlier on does not deter crime. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Now for the affirmative, we have Mr. Tikoy to cross-examine Ms. Candace's proposition. Sir, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. So you
Good
have
evening, sir.
started. Yes, you have
I'm sorry,
started
my net
your
is not
speech.
that good again. Yes, po.
Okay. You have started your speech with a quote from Jose Rizal. Does Rizal has something to do with this topic?
Of course, sir. Yes.
Really? Seriously? Okay, next question. Do you believe to the equal protection of law?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So meaning law should be applicable to all.
No.
So, do you believe that law excuses no one from compliance therewith?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So meaning nobody is excused and offender should be liable to their action.
Come again, sir.
So meaning nobody is excused and offender should be liable to their action.
Yes.
Okay, yes. It's good. Do you believe to the objectivity and lawfulness of the Philippine legal system?
Come again, sir. I was not able
Do
to
you
hear the
believe
last part.
believe to the objectivity and lawfulness of the Philippine legal system?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you believe that right is subject to subjectivity, not gender bias, justice?
Again, I was not able to hear the last statement.
Do you believe that Philippine legal system do not discriminate, not opinionated, do not rely to subjectivity, not gender bias, justice?
No.
Seriously?
No.
So have you done your research? So meaning, Philippine system is discriminatory, opinionated, subjective, bias, and injustice in nature.
No.
Again, do you believe that Philippine legal system discriminate, discriminated, do not rely on subjectivity, not gender bias, no justice?
Kindly replace the statement, sir. I cannot hear much.
Okay. Next is Philippine Constitution, Article 3, Section 1, Bill of Rights. Hello?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you agree that violators of the law should be punished?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Are you aware of the Article 4 of the revised Penal Code?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It says, just kidding. Do you believe that incurring responsibility and accountability to minor who committed a crime will be beneficial to to them as to the aim of the reformative justice?
Okay, time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Now, moving on to the practicability of the proposition, we have Ms. Carla Scara of the affirmative to tell us why it is practical to lower the age of criminal responsibility. Mrs. Chara, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my fellow debaters and our esteemed judge. I'm going to I'm going to make us I'm going to speak on the practicability on why the age of criminal responsibility should be lowered to 9 years old. To start off, I'm gonna say a quote. They aren't afraid because we can't file charges against them. These are the words uttered by Village Council Chairman Hernan Perez after he and his team recently busted a drug and sex den at his barangay in Manila. The offenders were aged 10 years old to 13 years old. Now, the discovery of the den was just the tip of the iceberg. Their barangay is a cesspool of gang riots, theft, among other criminal activities. Unfortunately, most of the crimes were committed by minors as young as 5 years old. Based on a situational analysis conducted by the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council in 2018, children are more likely to commit offenses because of unfavorable conditions in their family and their immediate environment. Lack of parenting skills and exposure to violence in the family and community are significant enablers for children in conflict with the law or CICL. Other negative influences include social media and peer pressure. As a result of this exposure, children are driven to commit crimes because of their inability to manage their thoughts and their emotions properly. This is why we, on the affirmative side, believe that lowering the age of criminal liability is practical for the families who are unable to provide the care that their children require. In the words of Ariel Khalil, a developmental psychologist from the University of Chicago, Harris School of Public Policy, parents are the single greatest influence on children. The parents, along with other family members, play a crucial role in the child's behavior and personality. Children growing in a tumultuous household and community experience emotional, mental, and social damage that can affect their developmental growth. Children aged 9 years old are capable of recognizing basic social norms, and appropriate behavior. It is also at this age that children are able to think independently, can decide for themselves, and can even accomplish complex tasks. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention establishes the role of the parents, especially during this crucial age, as their guidance helps their children to know what is right or wrong, what proper discipline is, and what responsibility is. The 1987 Philippine Constitution recognizes the role of the family in the development of the state. Children first learn things about the world around them from their family. In fact, Republic Act 9344 defines the significant role of family in the prevention of juvenile delinquency. It is also under Section 12 of the same Republic Act that the family shall be responsible for the primary nurturing and rearing of the children. As a basic unit of society, the family establishes significant foundation upon which a child can grow. The bottom line is the family influences a child's moral compass as they grow, as displays of negative behavior from their parents, such as tolerance for unruly behavior, makes the child think that such act is acceptable and should be emanated. Because of trauma, abuse, and even improper care, children from dysfunctional families are prone to committing crimes. Getting these children out of their dysfunctional families lets them be taken care of by people who are capable of doing it. Children in conflict with the laws will be rehabilitated to become productive and law abiding citizens of the country. Early intervention saves the child from wasting his life and from living a life as a criminal adult. What's more, they will be spared from the trauma and abuse caused by their families. Rehabilitation should start young for those children in conflict with the law. The structured life in those shelters will provide a sense of normalcy for them. They have the chance to make friends, play children with their age, and even learn from tutors in the center. Lowering the criminal liability to 9 years old provides better opportunities to curb the proliferation of juvenile crime in the country, especially in the Philippines. Prolonging their stay with their dysfunctional families and communities will only worsen their lives. Lowering the criminal liability is not about punishing the children for the crimes they have committed. It is about addressing their individual needs with the right people and environment at the soonest time possible. That's all po. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Miss Caril. Now we have Miss Mary Louise Oevico, who is going to cross-examine the practicability laid down by our previous speaker. Okay, Miss Oevico, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. Miss Speaker, here are my questions for the interpellation. Okay, you mentioned that there's an involvement of 10 to 13 years old in the drug and sex scene then in Manila. So, are you aware that they are being used by their parents and adults?
Yes.
Then it is wrong that they have clear intention to commit these acts because they were forced to do this. And if they will resist, so they will be beaten or be um, if they decline to proceed. So you also mentioned that there's a huge factor of peer pressure and the influence of social media to your youth. So is it really necessary to improve our ways in terms of building a child-friendly communities to punish the kids first by detaining them?
Could you rephrase your question, please?
You also mentioned that there's a huge factor of peer pressure and the influence of social media to our youth.
Yes.
So is it necessary to improve our ways in terms of building a child-friendly community?
Yes, it's still necessary.
Third question.
given shit for the parents are the single greatest child over cyber sex and drug related manners. So do you believe that they are victims as well?
No.
And you said that lowering the age of criminal liability to 9 years old provides better opportunities to curb the population of juvenile crime to the country. Am I right?
Yes.
So can you show me pertinent data proving your argument that incarceration can help curb the juvenile crime in the country? Note your question.
Okay, now let us continue with Ms. Avika's stand on why it isn't practical to lower the age of criminal responsibility. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes to lay down your proposition.
To my intelligent colleagues, competent opponents, judges, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Senate Bill 2026 attempts to lower the age of criminal responsibility to 12 and allow children to be placed in a closed youth facility from the age of 9. So this is a giant leap backward based on its explanatory note. The bill argues that lowering the age of criminal responsibility will curb criminality and stop adults from using children. I, the third speaker of the negative side, believes that the proposition is not practical for the following reasons. First, it is unconstitutional, Your Honor. It deviates public policy on the protection of children. It is the paramount duty of the state to fulfill its policies and principles. So the Constitution provides that the state recognizes the vital role of the youth in nation building and shall promote and protect their physical, their moral, spiritual, intellectual, and social well being. It shall inculcate in the youth patriotism and nationalism and encourage their involvement in public and civic affairs. Hence, the proposition to lower the age of criminal responsibility deviate the policy mandated by the Constitution. Senate Bill 2026 violates the very policy of the state to nurture the well-being of the youth. Second, it violates international law. Article 2, Section 2 of the 1987 Constitution states that the Philippines renounces war as an instrument of national policy, adopts the general accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land, and adheres to the policy of peace, equality, justice, freedom, cooperation, and amity with all nations. Under the Incorporation Clause, the Philippines treats international agreements as law of the land. It mandates that the part of the Philippine law by operation of the Constitution, so that is according to Justice Carpio in his dissent in Bayan Muna 2011. Children in conflict with the law are protected by the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which guides UNICEF's work. So juvenile justice is part of the UNICEF's overall commitments to child protection, an area which addresses prevention and response to violence, to abuse and exploitation of children, as well as the particular rights of children not in the care of their families. Third, it is anti-poor, Your Honor. Poverty is the parent of the crime, and that is according to Aristotle. Poverty as a person could be languishing in jail in perpetuity. It has been blamed for many social ills. One such ill is why many children commit crimes. There is a lack of evidence and data that children are responsible for the increase in crime rates that has been committed here in Philippines. Lowering the age of criminal responsibility will not deter adult offenders from abusing children to commit crimes. Children who are exploited and driven by adults to commit crimes, they need to be protected, not further penalized. Instead, they should be given chances to reform and to rehabilitate. The current proposal is to delay sentence up to maximum age of 25 years. So if a child is jailed at 9 years old, it means that they have to waste away their life for 17 years under imprisonment until they can get a sentence for the crime committed. There's no mechanism to protect these children from cohabiting with hardened criminals and no guarantee that in detention they will be protected from violence and exploitation in jail. Branding children as criminals removes accountability from adults who are responsible for safeguarding them. So, if children who have been exploited by criminal syndicates are penalized instead of the adults who abuse them, we fail to uphold the rights and well being of the child, Your Honor. So, based on the data provided by the Juvenile Justice Welfare Council, there were at least 11,000 children in conflict with law in 2009. The government's media agency has reported that prior to the enactment of the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act of 2006, there are more than 52,000 Filipino children that are in detention or under custodial setting. So the prevalence of juvenile delinquency is primarily due to poverty. That is according to the Philippine National Police, the PNP, considering that the theft is the most common offense committed by the children. In conclusion, the proposition itself is a blatant insult to the Constitution, a departure to the intentions to address the children in conflict with the law, and directly unfavorable to those who have less in life for not considering the primary cause of criminality itself, which is poverty. That would be all.
Thank you, ma'am. Now for the affirmative, we have Mrs. Chara to cross-examine Ms. Evita's proposition. Ma'am, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening, fellow debaters. So I'll just have a few questions, answerable by yes or no. So the first question, you said uh, lowering the age of criminal liability to 9 years old is unconstitutional, and you said that the state in its policy uh, said that it has the it has the task to nurture the children of, since they are the future of the country. Doesn't the Constitution? Do you agree with me with this or not? Doesn't the Constitution also lay down policies with regards to the treatment of those who are not just in jails but also in rehabilitation centers?
Yes, I do agree.
Okay, follow up. You said that the state, yes, the state is indeed tasked with the nurturing of the children. With regards to children in conflict with the law, isn't the rehabilitation, lowering the age of the criminal liability, one of the state's measure of making sure that these children grow up to be productive and law-abiding citizens?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. On the with regards to the international law, from what I read, the international law not just focuses on the guidelines on how children conflict with the law should be treated generally, but doesn't those guidelines contain provisions on how they should be treated, especially if they are in rehabilitation?
Yes, they do.
Okay, follow up question. Okay, next question. You said that it's anti-poor. Do you know that majority of these children in conflict with the law come from impoverished communities? In short, they come from families who are truly incapable of even just providing them with the basic necessities such as even food and shelter. Some of their parents don't even have proper income. They also live in communities where violence is prevalent, especially crimes. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes, I do agree. That's why some parents push their child to the limits to commit crime for the sake
Okay.
of.
Follow up question to that one. Since since their parents are incapable of raising them, isn't it better for them, for these children particularly, to be placed in a shelter wherein social workers, doctors, or psychologists or psychiatrists can help them become better at their lives instead of staying with their dysfunctional families or communities?
Yes.
Okay, that is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let us proceed with the rebuttal of the negative side to be delivered by Mr. Manuel Antonio Lim.
Your Honor, equally competent speakers, viewers, good evening. Picking up from the key points discussed by our negative speakers, Senate Bill 2026 attempts to lower the age of criminality from 15 years old to 12 years old and allow child felons as early as 9 years old to be placed in a closed youth facility. This bill proposes that lowering the age of criminal responsibility will curb criminality and stop adults from using children in the commission of crimes. However, in summary, we in the negative side strongly oppose the said proposition based on the following points. This, first point, necessity. We refute the necessity of a new law lowering the age of criminal liability for these reasons. A. The Juvenile Justice System Act contains sufficient measures to address the issues regarding children in conflict with the law. What is needed is not a new law, but rather political will and a stricter implementation and enforcement of the existing law. For instance, cities and municipalities should be provided with rehabilitation facilities, adequate number of social workers, training and capacity building of law enforcers and law implementers, and adopting a whole of nation approach in preventing juvenile delinquents and or deal with them appropriately as needed. Letter B. According to a recent study conducted by the Psychology Association of the Philippines, discernment is not present among children younger than 15 years old. An end to this, scientific studies show that brain function reaches maturity only at around 16 years old, affecting children's reasoning and impulse control. Therefore, such juveniles are susceptible because they can be used as accessories in the commission of crimes, and in this regard, what is needed is a better implementation of existing child welfare and child protection laws, not the new law which is the subject of this debate. C. If the age of criminal liability will be set at a lower age, then this would mean that more children will be collaterally affected by the inadequacies in the implementation of the law. Point number 2, beneficiality. We firmly stand that the new law will do more harm than benefit to child offenders with the following reasons. A. It is unconstitutional. The new law would deviate from the state policy which protects the rights of children as enshrined in our Constitution. Further, Section 12, Article 3 of Presidential Decree number 603 provides that every child has the right to grow up as a free individual in an atmosphere of peace, understanding, tolerance, and universal brotherhood, and with the determination to contribute his share in the building of a better world. B. It violates international law. When the Philippines ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children in 1990, it meant that the country committed to place the best interests of the children as its primary concern when crafting policies that concern them. Lowering the age of criminal liability afflicts the rights of the child. Moreover, it is an act of violence against them. C. Children are often unable to protect themselves. Lowering the age of criminal liability would yield more children in contact with the criminal justice system of the country, increasing the rate of incarcerations, aggravate the risk of recidivism, and face social stigma and public mockery. Third point, practicability. We negate the practicability of the new law in question for these reasons. A. The root cause of juvenile delinquency is abuse and poverty. In addition, there is a lack of data and pieces of evidence showing that children are responsible for the increase in crime rates committed in the Philippines. Lowering the age of criminal responsibility will not deter adult offenders from abusing children to commit crimes. What child offenders need is protection, not incarceration, and to be given a chance to be rehabilitated and to reform. B. The current proposal to delay sentence up to a maximum age of 25 years old would mean that a child who is jailed at 9 years old would need to spend 17 years of his life in prison before obtaining sentence. And C. What is practical is the strengthening of existing laws on child protection, promote mechanisms that would prevent the occurrence of child delinquents, safeguard their rights, and to care for their welfare and their future. Your
Okay, Mr. Speaker, that is all. Time is up for
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, to summarize the necessity, beneficiality, and practicability of the proposition of the affirmative side, we have Miss Elisha Mustafa to give us their summary. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. At a young age, it is very important for the youth to be reared with a sense of responsibility for them to be able to contribute to the community. However, most of our youths today tends to become children in conflict with the law because of various factors that have made an impact during their growth and development period. So, according to Sigmund Freud, a psychoanalytic theorist, conflicts that occur during each stages of growth and development can have a lifelong experience or influence on one's personality and behavior. His theory suggested that personality is mostly established by the age of 5. Early experiences plays a large role in personality development and continue to influence behavior later in life. In the United States, there were at least 33 states that did not set a minimum age for criminal liability. So theoretically, they allowed a child to be penalized at any age. Of the states that set the minimum age for criminal liability, North Carolina has the lowest with 7 years old and Wisconsin with the highest at 10 years old. So, over the past years, our justice system has been intermittently shifting from punitive and a rehabilitative approach in dealing with the so called children in conflict with the law, or the CICL. In 2009, the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council reported a total of 11,000 CICL accused of committing petty crimes. And in that same year, the National Statistical Coordination Board reported a total of 481 CICL served by the DSWD in the Central Visayas alone. So lately, videos involving minors while committing crimes are going viral, like a 15-year-old beating to death another minor with a piece of wood, a group of street children caught dragging an old man out of a public utility jeepney to get his purse, and minors stealing jeepney drivers' income. Moreover, news headlines in the recent years have the same tenor, like a 14-year-old beating his older sister to death. A younger surrenderer started drugs at 8, and the drug war lists at least 20,584 kids as users, pushers, and runners. Poor juvenile court outcomes usually result to repetitive misconduct of these delinquents, usually for having a mindset that they can have or they can evade the law and its corresponding penalties due to their age. To ensure responsible youth, it would be best to lower down the age of criminal liability by allowing them to be accountable for their actions. Children should be honed for the future by instilling them good deeds and accepting the consequences of their actions for them to learn. With the issues presented from this team, we would like to express our strong stand on lowering the age of criminal liability. Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of salient points laid out by both teams. So that wraps up our debate proper. Debaters, let's give ourselves a round of applause.
Very good. Yes, sir. Okay. So while we are waiting for our adjudicator to tally the scores, let us take this moment to award him the certificate of appreciation for having participated this virtual debate awarded this 25th of September 2021. We proceed with your comments and insights about
So actually, I have already tabulated the scores I have given to the speaker. But first of all, I would like to congratulate to all our debaters for a well-prepared and clear and orderly presentation of your arguments. So actually, I can see that your hard work and research in your preparation really paid off. I can now honestly see that we can already compete with the other debaters in other schools. No? So I would like to encourage you to join whatever there will be coming contests, no? As the one spearheaded
Like
this September by our IPPLT. No? So I know what will be the awards that will be given.
for our awards, we have first our best speaker. So who do you think deserves to be our best speaker?
Best speaker. Would it be for the two sides or for overall?
Yes, sir, for overall.
So for this speaker, I choose the speaker from the affirmatives. No, Miss Rani Kandasa.
For next, we have our best speaker.
For the best debater, I have here Mr. Alonso.
For any other comments, sir, or suggestions to improve their skills, if ever mag-compete pa nila in the future?
Overall, the presentations were good. So, I think we just have to research more. That's all.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Congratulations. A successful first virtual debate.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so since you do not have any questions and sir already concluded this event, congratulations to our best speaker and to our best debater. Hopefully there is more for you in the future. Okay. So as the LEX Circle president, I would like to commend everyone here, our debaters, to the tech and support team, for giving your best efforts to make this virtual debate happen. So this is the first to many more debates we will participate in the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone here and many more enthusiasts to master the skill of formal discourse. Okay? So that is all for now. Thank you everyone and have a good weekend.